Welcome back to another Fantasy Puck video. It's Chris, and today we are going to be going over 7 players you absolutely must add to your fantasy hockey team for Week 17. Guys, the NHL All-Star break is just around the corner right now. We've seen a lot of players being designated to IR, just given the fact that they're eligible to do that so that they're able to sub in different players if they need to for the final week before the break. And then I'm assuming a lot of these guys are going to come off of IR leading back into the NHL season post All-Star break. This is where we see the big final push before trade deadlines for a lot of teams, and we've really seen some massive changes in terms of players coming back and having significant roles, as well as some players just establishing themselves in their respective roles in their team. So I've got 7 players that you absolutely must add to your fantasy hockey teams for Week 17. Let's get right into the video. We are going to start off this list with Flyers goaltender Samuel Ersson. 47% owned, which is honestly to be expected right now. The news came out about Carter Hart where he's going to be gone indefinitely for the foreseeable future. Don't know any type of specifics around that right now. We're still waiting to find out more information. The Flyers have been kind of meh in their past couple games. As you can see by the record there, Ersson is 4-4-1 in his last 10. He came in relief in one of those games, so that's why it doesn't total 10 games in that record. But he does have a .912 save percentage and a 2.10 goals against average in his last 10 games. These are really good numbers. He is 18th in the National Hockey League for goaltenders for goals saved above expected, and he's just going to be the bona fide starter going forward for the Philadelphia Flyers. He's been great. He's been consistent all year. Philly's just going through a little bit of a rough patch right now, but they are typically a very good defensive team. 10th best when it comes to expected goals against, the 9th best in the National Hockey League in expected goals against per 60, and the 7th lowest in the National Hockey League for high danger shots against. These are great numbers to kind of back up and justify why Ersson should be a fantastic goaltender option for you guys if he's available in your leagues. 47% owned. I'm expecting this ownership to go up as Philly starts to get back on a roll. Highly recommend you add this guy in your leagues if you need a starting goaltender. Up next, we have Bryan Rust of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's back off of injury. He's got 5 points in his last 9 games since returning, but the main focus here is he's back on line 1 and power play 1 for the Pens, getting that massive exposure to Sidney Crosby, who is just on an absolute tear this year, guys. 19.25 average time on ice in his last 5 games, and he had 20 points in 22 games prior to the injury. Just, again, you're playing with Sid. You get him on line 1 and power play 1. There's a lot of upside. He chips in hits every once in a while as well, too. He'll get you maybe 1 to 2 per game, which is great, kind of peripheral stats here and there. He's got a good shot volume on top of that and great offensive upside going forward, especially if the Pens, depending on where they end up in the standings, they might honestly add at the deadline depending on where they are at. I know there's been a lot of rumors with them moving out Jake Gensel specifically to the Vancouver Canucks, but we will see. We will have a ton of trade related videos for you guys on the channel, so don't worry, we will get to that. But going forward, I think Russ is a great option to add to your team for some offensive upside and some line 1 power play 1 exposure with a great shot volume. Another absolute stud is Artturi Lehkonen, 39% owned. Just look at his stats from last year, guys. In 64 games, he had a total of 51 points, 21 goals, 30 assists, 20 power play points in that span, 150 shots, 93 hits, and 43 blocks. Lehkonen is an absolute peripherals machine. He's currently slotted back in on that line 2, line 3. I don't really know what to call line 2 on that team, just because their middle 6 looks really kind of thin for Colorado, especially loading up that top line with McKinnon, Rantanen, and then Jonathan Drouin. He's also power play 2, and I expect, honestly, like a lot of this could change. He could easily get bumped back up to line 1 if they start running into stuff, but it's just the fact that McKinnon is on such a tear right now and big advocate of not fixing what isn't broken. So I would just leave that line 1 if I were the Avs, but Lehkonen does have some upside to kind of jump back onto that line 1 if we see a little bit of decline with Drouin in terms of his played. And he had 8 points in 12 games with averaging well over 18 minutes time on ice before that injury. He's a great peripherals and great upside in terms of just scoring and point production in general going forward. He's an absolute categories machine on top of that. Hits every single category you want. Highly recommend adding Artturi Lehkonen if he's available in your league. Yes, the return of Ivan Barbashev, 39% owned. He's got 7 points, 10 shots, 9 hits, and a block in his last 5 games played. This is honestly what we were kind of expecting out of Barbashev earlier on, especially after coming off of that Stanley Cup run. He was just unbelievable in terms of his production, playing alongside Jack Eichel. But it's funny now that Eichel's out of the lineup where Barbashev has just been elevated in his role. He's had over 17 minutes average time on ice in his last 5 games played, playing line 2 and power play 2 alongside Marchessault and Waugh. That's a great second line for him to be on. He's clearly found his spot in the lineup. Another great peripherals player, very similar to Lehkonen. He's definitely got more hit volume to him, but we're seeing a good amount of shot volume as well out of Barbashev going forward. He just needs the production to continue in order for him to be an absolute mainstay on your fantasy hockey team. He has 14 points in his last 20 games, guys. He honestly could be in for a absolute unbelievable second half of the season if he can find his spot, like I said, in Vegas and continue to produce in that top 6. So definitely worth keeping an eye on for him right now, but I honestly think he is an ad and you should get ahead of all the ownership if he continues on this tear. 7 points in his last 5 games and 14 in his last 20 shows you that he's definitely on the incline. I also want to give some love to Wyatt Johnston, 26% owned. I mentioned him in a previous must-add video. That was week 7, I believe. He was on the thumbnail. 8 points in his last 10 games, over 17 minutes average time on ice in his last 5. He's line 1 and power play 2, skating alongside Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson. He's already at 31 points in 47 games played, so expect him to kind of finish around that 55, maybe even 60 point mark for Johnson. He just has so much in terms of goal upside as well. I think he could honestly be a big second half breakout, especially if he stays on that top line with Hintz and Robertson. He is a very talented young player, and we saw last year that he's more than capable of putting the puck in the back of the net. If you're in deeper leagues, I highly recommend this guy, as I have in the past, due to the fact that he's got good shot volume and that he scores at will pretty much. And if he's playing top line in Dallas, this is a great sign. They kind of moved Pavelski down that lineup. A lot of upside in deeper leagues, especially for him. I'm keeping an eye on Johnson for sure, but he's shown that he's capable of scoring in this league, and I expect him to continue. Hopefully he stays on that line 1, but I think he's honestly worth an ad, especially in deeper leagues. Cam Atkinson is somebody that honestly should have been in a must-add video a while back. His shot volume has been unbelievable this year. His shots per 60 are up from 8.9 to 10.9. He's already at 147 shots on goal. He's got 7 points in his last 5 games, averaging well over 18 minutes, close to 19 minutes in his last 5 games. Line 1, power play 2, a ton of offensive upside for him. I think he's going to get an increased role with Owen Tippett going to IR. They're just working on an extension right now, but for Atkinson being in that top 6 and having a high shot volume and point production, I think he's a great ad for teams that are looking for some scoring. Only 23% owned, and you're getting a high volume shooter in Atkinson and somebody that can definitely put the puck in the back of the net and has definitely benefited from a role in that top 6 in Philly. Going forward, I highly recommend you add Atkinson in your league if you need more scoring and shot volume. Finally, guys, finishing up our list, I had to include David Rittich of the LA Kings, only 21% owned. I expect this ownership is going to go up drastically. LA is struggling right now. They are 2-5-3 in their last 10. This might raise a lot of questions about Cam Talbot, and if you want more information on what to do with Talbot, check out Mike's last video, his buy, sell, hold, where he talks about Talbot. Definitely recommend you guys go check that out if you want more information on what to do. If you are a Cam Talbot owner, should you pick up Rittich? Should you, drop Talbot? Just go check out Mike's video. 932 save percentage and a 1.6 goals against average in his last 5 games. He's been great. 17th in the National Hockey League now in goals saved above expected. These are great numbers as well. I think he has a legitimate chance to take over the starting role going forward, especially depending on how long it takes Talbot to bounce back. LA is just a fantastic defensive team, 5th in the National Hockey League when it comes to expected goals against, 8th best when it comes to expected goals against per 60, and the 6th lowest in the league when it comes to high danger shots against. So if you have a goalie on this team, it's honestly just a fantastic option for you to begin with. But now Rittich only being 21% owned should be readily available to most fantasy owners, and I highly recommend you add him. Even if you're a Cam Talbot owner, I think you can end up just running both LA goalies. They're going to figure it out eventually. They're just going through a little bit of a rut right now, and I have confidence that Rittich does have the chance to become the starter going forward. And I also believe that going forward, LA is just going to get out of the slump. So highly recommend adding Rittich again if you need a goaltender on your team. Guys, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed. Again, be sure to check out Mike's buy, sell, hold video. That video should be on the screen right now. Be sure to click on that and check that out if you haven't already. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next video. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.